Alright, we have a pretty simple question here. Were you ever in a session where you couldn't wait until it was all over? Well, user Way It Goes Boys says, we had 2 sessions where it was literally 4 to 5 hours of one fight. The DM just kept sending enemies at us over and over again. I would say both of them lasted up to 35 to 40 rounds. All I wanted to do was go home and take a long rest in my IRL bed. I have some serious questions, but one of them being, what exactly does the DM get out of that? I mean, you've trapped your players in a 4 to 5 hour combat where you just do the same thing over and over and over again. But as the DM, you are also trapped in the same combat. So what's the point? No one's having fun here. Well, I suppose we'll never know. So I wanted to share this story for a while now, not only because it ended up being a bad game, but it ended in my best friend of 20 years and I never speaking to each other ever again. When I say we were close, I mean we were like brothers. I got into D&D 5th edition a few years ago. About a year or 2 after that, my then best friend lets me know a mutual friend is going to be running a Curse of Strahd game and wants to know if I'm interested. I know the DM really well, and I'm excited and said, sure. When he told me it was in 15 minutes, I rush online, join the game, and throw together a pretty decent character, classic half-orc barbarian that likes fine wine and art, just in time. My best friend is not there. I make small talk with the DM since we are friends and start getting to know the other players. Finally, after an hour, my friend joins the chat. His character wasn't even ready. By the way, DM told me he had given my friend 2 weeks notice and asked him to let me know we were playing so that I could have a character ready too. He had 2 weeks. I had 15 minutes, and I still had a good character ready in time. About an hour later, we help him understand what a wizard class is. He insisted on wizard despite having no clue what any of the classes do, and we are finally ready to play. The DM does a great job, and we all start to get really into the story, except for my friend. There's an inn you can go to in the module. This can't possibly be a spoiler, right? Group's adventures go to inns, right? And I roleplay my character's interest in fine wine to impress the skeptical locals. Great session overall. Had a lot of fun, even though my friend acted very distracted. We decided to take a rest for the remainder of the evening. Here's where it gets weird. Friend decides his character doesn't want to sleep alone. He's a frail wizard. He was intentionally playing a very old half-elf that was like on death's door, and is afraid someone in this dark and creepy inn may try to harm him. Okay, finally getting some great roleplay. I say he can bunk with me. My character Lucid will keep him safe. My character Lucid would even be his little spoon. Okay, that was a bit of a vulgar joke on my part, I admit, but his response was that he would like that. At this point, I don't really think it is sexual or anything, just that he was scared and cold and maybe role-playing it in a weird way. Heck, even if he did mean it sexually, I wouldn't have necessarily been opposed to role-playing it, although my character was straight and would have politely turned him down. I agreed to it. The next session is where things start to get really disturbing, though. Alright, now let me provide you a bit of relevant background. I am a bisexual male. I have been my entire life. There was never a time in my life where I didn't think good-looking men were, well, good-looking. The same thing applies to good-looking women. I was ashamed of it for a long time, but in my 30s, I started opening up about it to the people close to me. People like my wife, my parents, and of course my closest friends. I had come out to all these people maybe a year before this game started. Okay, now back to the game. We leave the inn and start exploring. I'm being light on details to avoid spoilers. What is relevant is this. My friend, who was late to the session again by the way, is constantly distracted, sometimes making odd breathing noises. DM sometimes has to repeat himself 2 or 3 times before friend responds. At one point, he trips and falls at the beginning of combat. I agree to carry him, and he casts a spell against monsters while wrapped around my neck. We all think it's weird, but roll with it. After a few sessions where he was late, he stopped showing up entirely. DM gets frustrated and just cancels the game. Here is where it went from being weird to honestly emotionally devastating, at least for me. Friend and I have always played games together, but now do so rarely, and he is very distracted when we do. I ask what's going on, and he doesn't tell me. Finally, he breaks down and speaks to me in very vulgar terms about how I make him feel sexually. He blames me for telling him I was bi because that made him realize he wanted to be with me sexually. He tells me all the times he got quiet or was late before was because he was fantasizing about me. He told me just hearing my voice made him want to look at porn, which he was doing every time he heard me speak. He then told me that it was my fault that he never wanted to speak to me again because I had manipulated him or something. Look, I'm glad that toxic jerk is out of my life. It still really hurts though. We had helped each other through some really tough times, and for him to start sexualizing me just because he found out I was bisexual and then to blame me for his hang-ups and ghost me when I won't reciprocate his feelings, it still hurts a lot. I hope this makes sense. Just wanted to share the sad story. It had put me in a dark place, but I came around. I am an active player and DM now, and have a lot of fun playing with some super cool people. Oh boy, what was that? Are the ALOs okay? Anyway, this is insane and goes beyond RPG horror stories. This is a real life horror story. And I have to say, look, I have spoken multiple times about how I think that it is perfectly reasonable and okay to play D&D with a special someone in your life. But if you develop a crush on someone in your group, you need to handle it like an adult, because that kind of awkwardness can really break up a D&D group. Hell, it can probably break up a friendship. Obviously, the friend's immature handling of the situation and just complete lack of any respect for their friend, their married friend, by the way, is just unbelievable to me. Completely insane. And yeah, I think we need to move on to the next story. 1 year ago, I decided to join my friend's 5th edition group, 6 players. Most of them just started their role-playing adventures. Party meshed together great, besides that guy, but about that later. After a few years of playing Barbarian and Warlock, I decided to play something different. I made a human nature cleric, 20 years old, timid guy who lived all his life as protector of a small forest. Innocent and childish of nature, his 2 squirrels, lawful good speaker and chaotic evil nutseater, functioned as shoulder, angel, and devil. As a veteran of the game, I didn't want to be at the forefront, so I just provided healing and comedic relief. 2 girls in our team, half-elf bard and tiefling druid, immediately take a liking to my character, and here lied the problem that ignited the aforementioned that guy hatred. I came to know later that he signed up because he saw his crush, the girl playing the druid, signing up as well, playing a white knight paladin both in and out of character. He tried his hardest to ignore anyone who wasn't her or our bard. It wasn't that bad, and it's something you expect to have in randomly made groups, but when his crush invited me to hang out in real life after a session, we play online because of COVID, he snapped. 2 days after that session, I get pinged on Facebook in our local RPG players group. The nice guy, that guy, decided to write long posts about how my character and role-playing gave him creepy vibes? According to him, no normal man will play a character like that. For a bonus, he fabricated some stories of me doing the same weird things in my past groups. What he didn't know was that I knew most of the guys there, and they know about my past games. Negative reactions to his post and confrontation with the GM made him quit instantly. His last effort to win over the druid was to slide into her DMs and invite her to his game that he decided to start. No success. I don't know if he still plays D&D these days, but if he is, I think only manly barbarians and fighters are allowed to join his party. Oh boy, a nice guy. We haven't seen one of those in ages. I've honestly kind of missed it. Oh boy, it has been ages since we last had a nice guy, and honestly, I've kind of missed it. But this goes beyond nice guy behavior. Obviously, joining a game just to get the girl, so to speak, is kind of creepy. In fact, it's really creepy. But what makes the story all the worse is that this guy tried to manipulate the entire group chat or Facebook group or whatever into thinking that the guy the girl just asked to hang out is some kind of pedophile or something like that. Before you think that that kind of behavior is unrealistic or out of this world, let me tell you, it's not. I have seen people do similar things after breakups, and it is gross. It is gross every time. That is a real life horror story if I've ever seen one. So yeah, not good overall, but I'm glad that this one had a happy ending, and I hope that the game went at least somewhat smoothly after that. Alright, next story. Considered making this a throwaway, but screw it, I don't care. A group of friends and I have been playing tabletop games since 2017. Our first campaign was Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, ran by an experienced player who wasn't a great DM. He called off the campaign after a few months of play, and I started a campaign of 5th edition myself, which ran for 2 years. Another player who later started a 5th edition campaign that is still ongoing, and another player now is DMing a World of Darkness game. I also ran a brief Starfinder game. All of this was pretty much with the same group of people. In July of 2019, the first DM, the one with the cancelled campaign, decided he wanted to try running another 5th edition game with homebrew races, rules, and world building. This campaign is the topic of this post, and has been progressively getting more difficult to enjoy. First of all, the DM based this campaign around a concept he had developed for novelization. It essentially revolves around a league of adolescents and young adults who are a special unit of soldiers for a certain nation's army. We each have a special character ability, which the DM calls gifts. My character's gift is a homebrew spellcasting option. Another character has special offensive bonuses, etc. Second, the DM changed up the normal group and added 2 players he knew from high school. Neither had tabletop experience. Our characters started out fine, spending the first few sessions orienting themselves in the new world. The first red flag of the campaign appeared rather quickly, as we were told that our player characters are not really the focus of the story, but are essentially following around more powerful NPCs and dealing with things too petty for them. You know, in the massive war effort. Additionally, after we oriented ourselves and we had our first 2 bosses, who we didn't actually fight, the powerful NPCs we served defeated them in 30 minutes in a long narrative cutscene. We were told we were getting to the meat of the campaign, which is literally a D100 table of random side quests. That's right, we barely engage with the world, and our characters are flat out told we are less important than the NPCs, and now we find out that the literal entire campaign is filler while we wait for NPCs to do the actual plot. Some examples of these quests include attend a play, investigate a tavern that has a roadside attraction, and several quests about rescuing miscellaneous orphan children that also have gifts. There are way too many underage children as NPCs, which is creepy in and of itself, but that's a different post. I wouldn't mind this so much if we were allowed to interact with the world, but any time myself or any of the players tried to make our own fun or interact in meaningful ways, we are harshly punished. For example, one quest involved us investigating some low-level demons. We entered the town and everyone there was a human and racist against non-humans. Our party had no humans in it at all. The quest-giving NPC actually spit on party members. The quest giver then took us to the site of the demons, and my wizard put her to sleep so that we could take them out without her. We go a ways away and fight the demons and return to find her murdered by another demon that just appeared from nowhere just to kill her. This was problematic for several reasons. The demon appeared in a safe area that we left her in, and this demon was defeated easily by the players, who were weaker than the OP NPC, and the sleep spell expires if the target takes damage while asleep. This character was killed off for seemingly no reason. The DM said my character was now wanted for murdering her? I contested this, but the DM was firm and had the support of one of the other 2 new players who scolded and blamed me in character. On the aforementioned tavern investigation, we found a tavern that advertised it had a horrible monster in the basement for adventurers to defeat. The monster was a single giant spider that was more of a pet, and the whole thing was supposed to be a gag. My character exited the basement and loudly proclaimed that she had defeated the monster, and the tavern goers booed the party as a result? We were later told the tavern shut down permanently because I spoiled the fun and were hit with in-game punishments for doing so. Again, I was blamed in-game by that same player too. Now, this player took a leave of absence from the game for 5 or so sessions due to personal reasons. However, he has decided today to rejoin next session. I was informed by a fellow player that this player had formed a group me with every player except for myself and the DM. This group me was dedicated to organizing a kill for my player character. for dominating the game? Now, I'm a charismatic person in real life and often serve a leadership role in organizations and events, no different than tabletop, and my character in this campaign is literally a facey wizard/bard. The new players aren't keen for decision making, and the other old players are content to just chill, so I do end up guiding decisions and discussion a lot, but nobody has ever expressed any issue with this until now. Thankfully, my fellow player was a good friend and told me immediately. I was already looking for the door because the campaign was frankly boring and had no interactivity due to heavy railroading. I'm leaving the campaign and likely asking the DM to leave the campaign I'm currently running because this is wildly unprofessional and hurtful. I don't think I'll be missing much moving forward. I'm just hurt. It makes me feel like playing less overall. I wanted to clarify that this group me has no interaction in it, besides being formed by the initial player and the initial player proposing to kill my character off. The other players made no commentary and didn't hit like on any of the messages. The group isn't conspiring to kill me, but this player is, and the DM is doing nothing about it. On the latest episode of Roll for Insights, myself and Crick Crab, Crick Crab, no big deal, just did a podcast with Crick Crab, you don't need to check it out or anything, no big deal. Anyway, we both agreed that handling out-of-game problems with in-game consequences is dumb. Let's say hypothetically, this guy is actually taking up the spotlight. It's possible, though I think unlikely given his testimony, but let's just say it's possible. If he is, the group's approach to solving this problem is incredibly dumb. You know how you solve a spotlight hog? You walk up to them and go, "Hey man, can you back off a little bit in roleplay interactions?" That's it. There you go, the magical science to solving the spotlight hog. You don't need to conspire with the group to kill off their character, because you know what that's going to do? It's just going to piss everyone off, because that sucks. Also, the DMPCs in this campaign are the equivalent of the airship story. I mean, seriously, they are so bad, or at least it sounds like they're that bad. It is absolutely mind-boggling that the DM would actually have a main story happening in the background while the players are just doing chores on the side. That is so unbelievably stupid. I mean, this DM actually took the advice of write a book, but somehow still applied it to their D&D game. I mean, good lord. That was pretty bad. Not the worst we've read, somehow, but still pretty bad. If you guys enjoyed this episode of RPG Horror Stories and you want to let me know, then please do leave a like. If you want to see more episodes of this series as well as my other content, then please do subscribe to Crispy's Tavern. And finally, if you want to leave your own stories or thoughts, then go down to the comments down below. If you can't think of a comment, leave the comment DMPC to let me know you made it to the end of the video. In essence, like, comment, subscribe. I will see you all next time. Farewell.